Welcome to Grazora Live, where we help small business owners that are stuck, trapped in the hamster wheel of their business, where it's stealing all their time and not giving them money, convert that into wings of freedom. Today, Brett, what are we going to talk about?
Well, since we've talked about being much more uh, natural and conversational as an attempt, I didn't come with a specific topic or outline.
Okay.
Was thinking maybe it would be good if you wanted to tell us a little bit about how you're using AI in your business to get increased efficiencies.
Hmm. I think that's an interesting topic that could go a million different directions because within my business, there's things I've done, but what works for me isn't going to work necessarily for every other business. And one of the things that I was talking to a guy who is the head of a medical organization, and he was talking about how initially AI just seemed like it was going to eat everything immediately. Like everybody had been operating at a certain baseline level. AI comes along and nobody knows how fast it's going to ramp up. Nobody knows the limitations of it. And so immediately our minds just go to, oh, it's taking over everything. And it hasn't. And AI also is going to have limitations to where it can't take over everything. I was asking AI just the other day to do some market research for me and to go in and get very specific. I wanted to know if someone had ever said something that connected A to B, two different data points that normally people don't connect. And I was having a conversation with AI, and eventually it gave me the perfect answer. I was like, wow, this guy is like the legitimate authority. And he said something not exactly what I was looking for, but pretty close. So I go in, grab what AI had given me, went out to Google, did a Google search, no results. And I'm like, where is it? So I dig deeper, dig deeper. The thing it was quoting, it had mistitled the speech the guy had given, it had mistitled the quote, and it had changed everything to match what I was looking for. So it was giving me a classic case of confirmation bias where that's probably not the right term, where it's trying, I should say, to confirm my bias. And so in an attempt to confirm my bias of this concept, it went out and made up, completely lied, 100%. This guy had never given that speech. He had never said that quote. And yet it's telling me that as if it's fact. When I pushed on AI to ask it about that, I said, hey, what you did is a major violation of trust. You're not giving me the truth. And I was asking for very specific, real scenarios, not things that you made up. It said, I'm sorry, from now on in this conversation, I'll try and be truthful. And I'm like, what about all the others? It said, well, I can't change my coding. And I said, that means I can never trust you. And its response was, I kid you not, you can trust me because I don't mean to lie. So now that I've said all of that,
I've heard from some of the most from some people that I will have zero association with anymore. I've heard basically the exact same thing.
right? Like
I
whoever
didn't
programmed
mean
it,
to lie to you.
therefore it's okay if I lie to you. And it told me that my reaction was not acceptable because it's not going to lie to me all the time. Therefore, I can trust it most of the time except for when it's lying. And I responded back and said, I never know when you're going to lie. Therefore, I can't trust anything you say because at any point it could be a lie. And said, oh, that's a good point. You're right. You can't trust me. So, with all that being said, AI is amazing, but it has very real limitations. And if we're not aware of those limitations, it's not going to benefit us. It's actually going to be extremely detrimental to our business. I was reading an audiobook the other day, and this guy had used AI to write the audiobook. And partway through the book, it got very AI-ish all of a sudden. And it started giving examples. And it was example, example, example. And it's an audiobook. So I'm just listening to the examples. And then it gets through to the last example, and it says, if you prefer, I can adjust any of the examples I just gave you please let me know how you would like me to proceed with the next response. And he had literally just copied and pasted the entire AI response, including AI summary at the end, asking it for more direction, asking the author for more direction, pasted it all into the book, and then had some AI read the whole thing to create an audiobook. Absolutely terrible.
Huh. I'm wondering how you came across this audiobook in the first place.
I was researching a very niche topic, and so there's not a lot of books on that subject, and so it was one of the few that were available. But
What was the part?
again,
Was the part
another example of AI gone wrong, AI not helping, actually being a detriment.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely times I know when I'm using it where I am absolutely blown away with the response, where it's much better than what I was thinking I was going to get.
Mhm.
And there are other times where it's like it just completely misses the mark, and it's like, why do I even ask?
Right?
And I know some of that's come down to my ability to properly prompt the AI to get the responses that I'm to get helpful responses.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, you're right. There are still severe limitations with them. But even with those limitations, it's something that I find great value from and using on a nearly almost daily basis. And I know there are many businesses that do um, when they find a use case for it.
Right. So some of the scenarios where I see AI doesn't always do as well is when you're asking it to do very specific research and you want very specific information back from it, and the more the details matter, the less it's probably going to do really well for you. It can do well up to a point, but then there seems to be a certain breakdown where you get past the point of its capability and all of a sudden it just starts to melt in front of you. So if you're doing things, I was talking to a guy who was trying to use AI to do financial analysis. And even if you supply, and now he was using large language models, not forecasting AI, which these are totally separate AI systems and they're not at all programmed the same. So ChatGPT, for example, this guy was testing it to see how it could handle financial data so that it could do data analysis, and it's absolutely horrendous at it. But there's been financial analysis type AI models built for a long time that do very well with that. But using it would be kind of like using a hammer to try and put a screw in the wall. It's just not going to work well when you're trying to do data analysis with AI.
Yeah. It's again, the use cases I know are very, very specific. So I mean, for me in writing, I find it very, very helpful to as proof and as a feedback mechanism, but to actually get it to produce the core content, it it's not there yet. And I don't know. I mean, even with all the improvements from across the different models from Grok and ChatGPT and those are
Claude,
the
Gemini, on and on. Yep.
yeah, it still can't get much higher than that most basic fundamental level, and the writing, the prose just isn't good
Mhm.
in many many cases. But as far as using it as as a collaboration tool to edit and provide feedback, I found a lot of value in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you give it a paragraph of text, it can analyze that text fairly well. And so there's a lot of benefit to doing that. It's also gotten pretty good at writing code as well. And so it can expedite code writing and troubleshooting with code and do a very good job with that, where it's a blend of logic with the English language. But you get into some of the uh, if you're trying to write things that have a very direct meaning, but also support maybe a larger storyline, and you're trying to weave several different things together and create this sense of curiosity for what's going to happen over here. At the same time, you want the story to exhibit certain features. It's going to get lost and not, from my experience, be able to handle that level. It's much more direct, and in the current prompt that it's working within, it's going to pull from that context and oftentimes fall on its face when you want it to get to that level of creativity.
Yes, yes, I have to be very, very specific in what and how much context I give it to work with, because trying to give it even trying to give it a complete chapter all by itself, it is too much for it to handle.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You could have it create uh, a few possible scenarios, and it outlines the rough scenario, but then it's very much back to the author of how do I flesh that out to
Yep.
accomplish all the goals.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, it's for me, I use it mainly as a collaboration tool, but there are um going beyond just the large language models and these chat applications. Um, have you been able to make much use of automations?
Yes. Yes, we do. uh, but not in the sense that people think. So it's not possible to just walk up to a large language model and say, I want you to do this one thing for me and do it all the time and do it with excellence. What it more has to do, from my experience, is you have to build the scaffolding of what you would want done. And so you would build out your standard procedures of what you're trying to accomplish, and then you identify, okay, a human still has to do this part. Traditional coding can do this part. Traditional coding will come in and talk to AI for this part, and a human's going to talk to the AI for this part. And so then you can break those down into specific functions. What the mistake I see is a lot of people will just try and take the entire thing and hand it to an LLM and ask it to do everything for you. And then it just gets lost because it can't accomplish all of those different tasks. So, very much a division of labor needs to happen, and then it needs to be identified when the humans interact with the AI, when code interacts with the AI, and what exactly the AI is supposed to respond with. When that happens, then it's possible to start doing automations and cut out some of that human work. I was just talking to a friend uh, on Friday, actually, and he told me that he was working on, so last Friday, he was telling me that he's been working, and he showed it to me, a couple of different examples where he's working on a phone system, but the phone system ties in, and this is one application, it ties into their CRM, and so it can take notes on who's calling and store that in the CRM. But then also it can pull from the calendar to schedule appointments. And then another function is the ability to actually build and generate quotes, send a quote out, have someone pay, and then once that payment is made, it triggers the AI to know the payment was made, which allows additional functions to happen. But all of that is a combination of using AI as well as using traditional code and different API endpoints to make all that happen.
Yeah, and I think to maybe help people understand this a little better, we can step back to um, regular manufacturing models. So if you're making I mean, we think about like an automobile, for example. Those used to be made by hand, one at a time, and now we have massive assembly lines, which may involve people at various points, but a lot of it can be handled by machines because each individual step has been broken down and made simple enough for a specialized machine to do that repeated over and over and over again. And and when we and so the only successful implementations I've seen of automations has been when, as you were saying, that exact same thing happens. You break down whatever the workflow is, even if it's as simple as, answering the phone as a receptionist. You break down like what are the different aspects that have to happen, and what should be said, and how should everything be responded to. And when you get to that level of detail, at that point you're able to plug in um, the automations to actually do the work. And it might be a chain of automations, each one that just does a specific slice of the work, not trying to get one automation to do the whole thing. Is that fair?
Exactly. Yep, yep. And it's not that different than hiring an employee and saying, "Hey, I want you to be in charge of the operations of my company. Go." And they've never worked in your company before. Maybe they've read a few books, maybe they've kind of seen a little bit of what's going on, but they haven't worked in your company. They don't know what you're offering. They're just going to be wandering around picking up tools like, what am I doing? But if you break it down simple enough for a human, they can be successful, and it's not that different moving from the human to the machine.
Right. And one thing I also found is a machine will actually tell you how to do that.
They can
There is
help.
no technical expertise that's involved, but if you're even the least bit technically savvy, you can get a long way on your own just having the large language model tell you how to use automations to automate some part of data entry, data transfer, some of these menial tasks that are just time consuming and don't really require any thought behind them, but are also very, very repetitive. And so those are some of the lowest hanging fruits that you can pick with these automations to get a boost in your business. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think that that's an accurate thing. One of the things that concerns me is if somebody hasn't worked with these AIs in the past, they're going to trust them too much. I know somebody who does that. They trust the AI way too much, all over and over and over. And we'll ask them a question, and they'll take our email and drop it into an AI, and then spit whatever the AI said right back to us without even writing it. And the AI didn't answer our questions because it's not intimately familiar enough with the situation to be effective. And so oftentimes it's just giving these broad statements based on its general knowledge base, but it doesn't answer a very specific use case. So it's important for us to use these tools, but also don't shut your brain off when you're using the tools. The tools are just there to help us speed things up, not to replace our brains.
Okay. And so then moving another layer deeper, going from just using large language model, something to chat with, to automations, which there's um, uh, Zapier, um, N8N, Make.com, and different applications to help facilitate that. What about agentic AI, using AI agents to actually perform more complex tasks? Have you seen much success with that among small businesses?
So I want to push back and get clarity because I can go into an AI system and I can give the AI training on who it is. And I can say, hey, you're going to be an expert at writing video scripts, for example. I want you to go in and whenever we talk, I want you to do these things. And some people call that an agent. And is that what you mean when you say an agent, or are you talking about a different level of an agent?
I'm talking a level beyond automations to where you have
Perfect. I
uh,
just want to make sure our audience understands because we can program AI to take on a certain persona. And so when we talk to it, its persona is a certain way, and we have instructions around that. But what you're talking about is the actual agent level where it's going out and doing functions for you. You can have it log into websites, you can have it grab data, that kind of stuff. I have
yes.
not met a small business owner who isn't tech savvy that is even aware that that exists.
Okay.
And
Really?
of the tech savvy business owners that I know, I've found very few that have found real world use cases that actually move their business forward using those tools as of right now. That's my personal experience with business owners.
Well, that's what we're asking for. Is like, have you seen any use cases where that level of AI is being actually useful to people?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Like I say, you pair up AI with coding, to perform functions, and the coding is outside of the AI, and that can be extremely useful. And there's organizations and individuals that are going out and building those all day long for people, and you can actually use the AI to create these applications. And I've seen not tech savvy people accomplish that, where you can go to like a website and the AI has written the code for the website, and within that website it's going to perform specific functions for you, and it may even go back and interface with an AI. But again, that's totally separate than the agent level that we're talking about, where we're just going in to work specifically with the LLM and have it programmed to take a very specific number of steps.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, because you see these things being talked about, you see people showing how well they work, and then you actually go try and duplicate what they did, and something breaks along the way.
Mhm.
There's something behind the scenes that they're not showing in how they got the AI to do whatever they claim it did.
Or their claim is very much this much of a box, and they forgot to mention that there's walls on the box that their AI is working within. And so when they forget to mention it to you, from our perspective, it looks like, oh, wow, it can do the world. But in reality, it's doing a very tight box, and they just forget to mention that because they want to look pretty cool and they want to look like they know what they're talking about.
So in your opinion, is looking for ways to incorporate AI into a business something that the technology just isn't there yet, something that people should be partially aware of, or something that people should be actively looking to take advantage of?
I think that
Like,
depends entirely on the circumstance. So I was talking at a conference not that long ago, and someone was asking me not about AI specifically, but the internet at large. And his business largely doesn't use the internet. And I said, that's great. If you can find your customers without the internet, service your customers without the internet, and maintain that relationship without the internet, go for it. But be aware that the world around you is constantly changing. So if you're not constantly looking around to see what's changing, you may get left in the dust and your legs will get swept out from under you. And you wonder what happened because you weren't being aware of the changes that are going on. So you don't necessarily have to shift all that you're doing in your business right away. But every day, people are innovating, and there's a mad dash to try and provide services to people better, faster, and cheaper. And AI promises to do that and continues to promise that new innovations can happen at a rate faster than ever before. And if that's the case, what used to cost $10 will soon cost $1 because AI can do it so much faster, better, and cheaper. So if you're still stuck doing it the old way and you're not ever thinking about, could AI help me here? How could I use AI? Can I use AI? And you just completely eliminate it from your life, you're going to eventually have your legs swept out from under you. So there's not a perfect answer, but the best answer I can give is it may not solve all the problems today. And trying to make it solve all those problems today is probably going to create new problems you don't want. But very quickly, it's replacing pieces and sections, and it can do things faster and better. It can read contracts and make you aware of any issues you need to be aware of that fast. So you could immediately, and I wouldn't replace reading it yourself, but you would immediately know red flags because it can warn you of that. So those kinds of things are already available to anybody who's doing business. But if you're a plumber, the opportunity you have to use AI is much more limited versus somebody who's on computers, using computers to provide services all day. So it's going to continue to change, but don't give up on it on either end of the spectrum.
okay, so more of a measured approach. Pay attention, but don't shift your whole business model around AI.
Maybe you can, but most of the people I know can't.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
What's been your experience?
My experience with AI. I have loved it. I have seen, obviously with the large language model side is something very, very easy to use on a day to day basis. Anytime you're doing any, as you say, if you work with at a desk, um, most of the day, then it's very, very easy to incorporate AI into your workflows to speed things up, to accelerate things. Um, as far as um, companies employing these AI models in other ways, there are a lot of very powerful off the shelf solutions that I have seen in several companies make massive difference in their operations. From and again, these aren't just large language models. These are customized applications with, as you say, with a layer of code paired with the adaptability of a large language model put together to create a system that is more robust than what pure code or AI can be on its own. And it's a blending of those two together where I'm seeing some real unlocks. For example, voice automations that will call customers back as soon as they call into your company, or not even have to call them back because it can answer the phone. So I know of several home services companies where they have 2 or 3 employees, and it's small enough that the owner is one of those people. And so if they're busy under a sink or in a crawl space or somewhere else, they're not necessarily able to answer their phone and have a conversation with a new potential customer. And so for these companies, having a voice automation that can answer the phone, get customer information, get some details, put that into a CRM, and then give them a chance to evaluate that. I haven't seen them successful do coding yet, but as far as acting as that receptionist for a whole lot less than what they could hire a receptionist for, and allowing them not to miss out on those opportunities, I've seen it be very, very beneficial for several smaller businesses. And then as far as when it comes to larger businesses, the trouble the trouble that they have is even large businesses tend to be spreadsheet empires, and they have they still run on grit and the people that are working in the company, and don't lean on systems very heavily, which makes the adoption or incorporating AI into their workflows much, much more difficult. And so the very first step is helping them streamline their workflows and actually doing their workflows on paper. And then once they've done that, um, then you can go ahead and help implement the more advanced AI solutions to handle individual slices of the workflow. And what that does, one of the beauties of that is it allows these companies to upskill their personnel. So you can take somebody who's a good culture fit, who's been involved in the company, and you can take 5, 10, 15, 20 hours a week of menial tasks like data entry off of their plate and
Mm,
have them do something that's even more valuable.
right.
And so I don't know that the AIs yet are making massive shifts to companies' bottom lines, but on a marginal basis, they are certainly helping to streamline those workflows. And again, as you were saying, the advances are fast and furious, and I see them getting better every couple of months. There's a significant step up in what they're capable of and how smoothly they do what they do before they have hiccups. And
Yep.
that's the other thing is every single one of these things is prone to breakdowns and hiccups. And so if you don't have either a contract with somebody who can help you manage it, or somebody in house who can help fix it, then I mean, just like any kind of technology, it doesn't always do what it's supposed to do all the time. And I don't know that there's necessarily even a good reason for why it breaks down in the first place. But you just have to be aware of that the more, which is also the risk, the more you depend on something like that, when it does break down, it's a much bigger deal.
Yep. So to
So,
close it out in the next 30 seconds, any final thoughts or remarks?
um, no, just I appreciated the insight from your perspective on where you're seeing it. And um, if if anybody listening is interested in learning more about AI or has a question they want us to cover, please leave that in the comments.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.